This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, and I'm your host, J. Scott. I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field enjoying God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have a great show lined up for you with good friend Joe Slaton of Motherlode Turkey Calls based out of California. This next clip that you're about to hear is an actual hunt that Joe Slaton and I had in 2013 in eastern Arizona. I had split up with Joe that night and tried to roost turkeys. I found a turkey roosted, and we went and hunted the bird the next morning, and you'll hear what happened.
Got a bird roosted for Joe in the morning. He's all by himself. Hopefully we can get in here early. Get on this bird. Beautiful bird, huh?
Yeah. Jay roosted this turkey last night in here. He knew he'd heard another bird down further too, but he said, I think we got a good setup on this turkey. So I looked at my watch and it was 5:10, and you said they'd been flying out 5:10, 5:15. So I thought, I'm going to wait for him to gobble one more time. And then I did. And I called and he didn't say nothing. I'm like, now what, you know? And then I waited a couple more minutes. And he gobbled a couple more times. I called one more time, and he didn't gobble. But then it sounded like he turned right at me and was gobbling right at me.
Yeah.
And then I heard him fly down. And then once he hit the ground, I waited just a little bit. I don't think he'd even gobbled on the ground yet. And I called, and he hammered back twice in a row. And I thought, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. And I saw him walking through those trees there. He was coming right at us. So
Awesome job, man.
Perfect. Loved it. It was great.
That was awesome.
Great hunt.
Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. We have a very awesome guest today, a good friend of mine, Joe Slaton. And Joe was the runner-up in the 2013 and 14 National Wild Turkey Federation Grand National Gobbling Contest. And this year in 2015, Joe captured the title, won first place. And Joe and I go back. We had a mutual friend, Marvin Robbins, who was one of Joe's mentors and best friend. And Marvin has since passed on, but Joe has kept Marvin's legacy alive. And Joe has started Motherlode Turkey Calls. He's based out of California. And just a great guy, great turkey hunter, turkey nut is probably a good way to put it. He raises turkeys. You'll probably at some point during this conversation end up hearing turkeys in the background. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jay. How's it going?
Oh, just going great. I know you were out this morning with your video camera. One of the things Joe likes to do all spring is go out virtually every morning, and he's fortunate that he lives in an area where he has a lot of turkeys that live around him on different properties and such, and you're able to video and get a lot of audio sounds of turkeys, aren't you, Joe?
Yep, it was a pretty good morning this morning. I had 50 turkeys within 15 yards of me for over a half an hour. So
That's incredible. And what was their condition? I mean, are they already gathering up? Are they already strutting around? How are they acting?
Yeah, they were Actually, we had some rain last night when I thought it might shut them down a little bit, but the gobblers were gobbling. There was 3 long beers in the group and about 4 or 5 jakes and a bunch of hens, and they were strutting around. One of the gobblers tried to breed a hen, and she'd lay down, and he'd try to get over on her, and then she'd get up and move, and they just kind of went back and forth like that for a little while.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Joe, tell me about first, entering into the contest as far as on a state level, and then how that has progressed to, how long have you been, actually competing? How long have you been a judge in the NWTF? Kind of give me a background on that.
I first started turkey calling and contest in 1986 in California here, and then 1987 I took 3rd place. I had no clue. There wasn't really anybody around where I lived that knew how to turkey hunt or that called or anything like that. So it was kind of just on my own. I actually bought a Dick Kirby, Paul Butsky tape, and I listened to it, and that was how I kind of learned how to use a mouth call. And then I met Marvin in 1989, and then in 1990 I used some of his calls to actually win the California State turkey calling contest, and then that qualified me to call at the Grand Nationals. So I called in the Grand Nationals in 91, 92, and 93, 3 years in a row, and I also actually called in the Gobbling contest, and in 92 in the Gobbling contest at the Grand Nationals, I took 3rd place behind a fellow by the name of Tucker Chris, who took 1st, and Preston Pittman took 2nd, and then me. And so that's kind of how it was. And then for several years, I went back to school, changed my occupation, and so I didn't really go to any of the Grand National calling contests until 2011. I went back, and then that's what started me calling in the Gobbling contest again. So.
Gotcha. And 2 years in a row as the runner-up in 13 and 14 and captured the title this year. How did it feel to be a Grand National, champion?
Oh, it was kind of a dream come true. I've been turkey calling for a long time, and one of my, goals was to win, Grand Nationals. I mean, if you're a contest caller, that's one of the goals. That's kind of like the Olympic gold medal, So, but it's been a hard road. I mean, it ain't easy. You're calling against the best callers in the world. I mean, these guys are coming from all over the United States to call in the competition. So, in 2012, I thought I had a pretty good chance. I had the calls and everything, and I was going through my whole routine and get down to like the last 3 gobbles that I needed to do, and my reed flipped, and it sounded like a predator call. Man, it was horrible. And they docked me. Matter of fact, one of the judges said, you were a 48 out of 50 until your reed flipped, and he gave me like a 42, So.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so then 13, I was 2nd by a point or 2, and then 14, I was beat by 1 point, and then this year I won, so.
That's fantastic. I was on the airplane, or actually just boarding the airplane in Phoenix, headed to Nashville, and with the intention of going, and then realizing that the Gobbling contest was, I believe, on the Thursday, my travel day, and I was really bummed out, but I was excited to see that you had won. Shane Simpson with Calling All Turkeys was kind of keeping everybody up to date. CallingAllTurkeys.com was kind of keeping everybody up to date, and it said Joe Slaton, your winner. And boy, that was made for a great flight, knowing that my buddy had just won the Grand Nationals, and I knew how much it meant to you. And knowing Marvin as well as I did, I know he was just beaming up in heaven at you, proud of your accomplishments. Tell me a little bit about you guys' friendship and, what all ensued with your friendship. And before you do, I will say that here in Arizona, Marvin has mentored so many people, and he lived and breathed turkey hunting, but he lived and breathed being a good person, and he lived and breathed being a Christian man and shared his faith. And tell me about Marvin in your perspective, Joe.
Well, like I said, I met Marvin in '89, and then I used some of the Timberline calls to win in 1990. And then from that year on, he invited me to come to New Mexico and turkey hunt with them. And I had never been out of California to turkey hunt. I'd killed quite a few turkeys here in California, but I'd never been out of state. So he invited me to come to New Mexico, and from that point on in 1991. Every single year we coordinated a trip somewhere we would go. And most of the time it was somewhere where we had never been. We had been, we went to Alabama together. We went to Florida together. We wanted to actually kill a Grand Slam. So we did a Grand Slam one year where we killed turkeys in Alabama and Florida. He came to California. We killed turkeys in California for our Rios. And then we went to Arizona, and actually, both of us killed turkeys in Arizona to complete the Grand Slam. So he was one of a special kind of a guy. I mean, all my kids loved him to death, and he's one of those guys. If he was in your life, he was, you were special to him, and he was special to you, and that's the way he lived.
Yeah, just one of those. Rare people that you meet in life that if you've ever met them, you'll never forget them.
Yep.
And, Dara and I feel so proud. The National Wild Turkey Federation here in Arizona has asked us to do this spring turkey seminar that, Marvin was always the guy that did it. And, it's just, I know doing the seminar, I'm going to be emotional because, it will bring back all those seminars that I sat through of Marvin's and listened to him and watched how he treat people and talk with people. And it's just a real special man and someone we will never forget. And it's awesome, I think, to both you and I can have that common bond of Marvin and his legacy. So it's just a neat opportunity that someone is that much on fire that it just you see him in so many people's lives.
Yep. Yeah. Matter of fact, one of the last times he was here in California, we borrowed one of your cameras and actually shot some turkey hunts with Marvin, and actually shot some video of him teaching how to call with a box call, and pretty much did a seminar in the woods with a guy who was a very rookie turkey hunter, had never been turkey hunting before, and he was a friend of my son's, and it was just a great situation, and we appreciated you letting us use his video. It turned out great, I thought.
Yeah, and I have those tapes. I need to get in there and dig them out and mail them to you. I still have all those tapes. I know I have them. I can picture the bag that they're in. I just need to go get them. So maybe later this afternoon I'll do that. Joe, looking forward into 2015 in California, what are you seeing as far as California turkey hunting? From my perspective, hunting over there the last, 7 or 8 years, it just seems like the birds keep exploding. There's more and more and more turkeys. How are the health of the turkeys in California?
I talked to somebody a couple days ago that said that, there was a 30% reduction in the turkey population in California. I don't know where they came up with that, because everywhere I go, there's turkeys everywhere. Like I said, I saw 50 turkeys today. And there's just continually turkeys just everywhere you turn around. They're spreading out more and more. And our turkey population isn't hurt at all. Not where I live anyway.
Yeah. Now in California, you have to stop hunting at 4 o'clock. And on normal hunting situations or hunting days, Joe, let's say it's the night before the season, are you going to go out and actually roost turkeys, or do you typically just know where they're at and then you just go from there?
Typically on any hunt, I want to try to roost a turkey. And I learned that from Marvin. And there's people out there today that say, well, you can't roost turkeys in the South and you can't do this and can't do that. We did it. I mean, we went to Alabama, we went to Florida, Missouri, all these places that you can't roost turkeys, and we roosted turkeys. Now, it ain't easy. It's not always, it doesn't happen every time you go out, but for the most part, we would roost a turkey almost every single time going out. And where I hunt in California, it depends on the ranch that I'm hunting. One ranch, I know where the turkey's going to roost. They roost there every night. They roost in just a few trees. And that's a typical situation for California. They love to roost in the digger pines or the bull pines. And so I know on this place where they roost. If I'm going to hunt that, I know where I'm going to be in the morning, and I don't usually go roost. It's about an hour away from my house. But the other place that I hunt, they're all over. There's about 7 or 8 different roost sites. So usually we try to go the night before and roost a turkey. So it just depends on where we're going to hunt, whether I'm going to roost the turkey or not. But for me, for the most part, I want to roost a turkey the night before.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I know in 2013, when you came out with me, we hunted the San Carlos Indian Reservation together for turkeys, and Tyler Hall and Glenn Hall were with us as well, and we had a great time. Yep. I remember we'd hunted for a day or two, it seemed like, and we split up in the evening, and everybody went a different direction to roost birds. And I remember hearing that bird gobble. It was not in the tree yet, and so I worked my way down, and my intention was, to try and roost a bird that you and I could go and get on the next morning, and ended up roosting that bird. Pretty much thought it was alone, and there was another gobbler down about 300 or 400 yards, and ended up roosting that bird. And I'm actually going to play some of that audio for our listeners. And what do you recall about that hunt and about that setup the next morning?
Well, I remember you saying, "Hey, I got a bird roosted, and I think he's by himself." So that's usually a good situation to get into when you got a turkey that's gobbling and he's by himself, and you know where he's at. So I remember getting in that morning, and the turkey right off the roost started, he started gobbling, still early, dark.
We were in there. We got up really early. Yep. And got way in there and got
pretty close. You kind of knew exactly where he was at. So
put a log kind of in the logging road, and we walked in the morning to that log, and then we counted steps, and then we sat down by those trees, and it seemed like we were there forever. And then he started gobbling. What do you recall after that?
Yeah, I remember. It's funny how we do that. We put something in the road so we'll know exactly where we are the next morning, because usually it's pitch black dark and we're not using any flashlights or anything. And I remember getting in, and we got in tight. We were close to the turkey, and we were set up in some pretty thick stuff, if I remember right. But everything worked out great. I mean, the turkey started gobbling in the tree right where he was supposed to be, and we just played our game.
Yeah, and he came right in and gobbled his brains out coming in, and you ended up making a great shot, and your Merriams was down. How many Merriams have you shot, Joe?
I probably shot 15 or 20, I want to say.
How many turkeys total have you shot, or, roughly?
119, I think.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Going back to roosting and trying to help our listeners understand roosting and what have you, why is roosting so important to you as a successful turkey hunter?
Well, if I know where he's at, I don't have to wait for him to gobble in the morning to go get set up on him. I know right where I'm going to set up. I go in, get in tight, get in close. And then I'm already in the game. If you have to wait for the turkey to gobble, sometimes turkeys don't gobble really early enough for you to get in close. So by the time you get in close to them, it could be light enough for them to bust you. So if you can roost a turkey, you can get in close, get in at dark before they can see what's going on, so you can move in close. And what I always like to do if I do roost a turkey is I like to find the spot where I'm going to be setting the next morning, or at least close to that, and do like a hen fly up with a wing, or do a little pop, 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 like a hen flying up. And that gets, to me, that gets the turkey thinking there's a hen there all night long. So then the next morning when I start calling, it's not a surprise to that turkey that there's a hen there, because he heard her fly up the night before. So.
Oh, wow. That's a great tip. That's a great tip. Now, let's say the next morning, that bird we had on the San Carlos, obviously we could tell he was alone. But let's say you roost a bird, you don't know exactly if he's alone or not. I mean, how aggressive do you get when they're on the roost, or do you typically wait until just before fly down to make any calls? What's your strategy?
I usually don't like to call very much with them in the tree, but man, that's hard when the turkeys are gobbling like crazy. But I usually like to let the turkey gobble on his own. I don't like to get the turkey gobbling. Most of the time, the Merriams turkeys anyway gobble on their own. Same with the Rios. They're gobbling like crazy. So, but before I think it's time to fly down, I want to give him a little bit of little hen talk in the tree to let him know I'm there. And then that, it depends on how he acts to that, as whether I call more or get more aggressive or do a fly down or whatever.
And how often in a morning roost setup where you're set up on birds that are roosted, how often do you do the fly down cackle and do the wing and do the whole thing? Is that every time, or just sometimes, or hardly ever?
It just depends on the hunt, depends on the turkey that I'm hunting, where I am. I always just kind of feel the whole situation out, whether I think I need to do a fly down. If I think he has a bunch of hens, or if I start hearing hens, then I'm going to get a little more aggressive. I'm going to get a little bit louder. I'm going to do a fly down. I'm going to try to get the hens mad at me so they'll come in, because if they come in, he'll come in. So each situation is different. I won't say I do it every time, and I won't say, that I will never do it. It just depends on the situation and the hunt.
Sure. And having hunted all the species of turkeys, the part about the eastern turkeys being real wary and don't call to them a lot. What is your perspective on that, Joe?
My perspective is, if a turkey is hunted hard, he's going to be hard to hunt, whether it's Merriam, Rio, Eastern, Osceola, whatever. If a turkey hasn't been boogered, hasn't been hunted very hard, it doesn't matter if he's Eastern, Osceola, or whatever. Most of the time, you can kill him. So I've always judged. I mean, I went in, I kept hearing Alabama turkeys, these Eastern turkeys, they've been hunted hard and they're hard to kill. And, we go and kill 2 first morning we were there, first hour of the hunt, So it just depends on the turkey, depends on where, how much they've been hunted, how much they've been pressured. A turkey is going to be a turkey no matter whether he lives in the mountains of Arizona or the swamps of Florida. He's going to act like a turkey. He's going to, want to breed. He's going to want to be a turkey. That's just the way they are.
Yeah. Joe, tell me a little bit about Motherlode turkey calls. I know that your diaphragm calls sure got my attention a couple years ago with, I believe, the call, is it the Exterminator and the Exterminator combo?
Yes. Yeah,
I found them very easy to blow, and that was the thing that really jumped out at me first and foremost, is very, very easy to blow, and took very little air pressure, which for me works very well.
Yeah, I started my Motherlode turkey calls about 2 years or a year and a half after Marvin had passed away. I was helping with the Timberline line of calls for a while, and his family kind of wanted to keep the Timberline calls in Arizona, and that was fine. I had no problem with that. And so I started Motherlode, and I had been making mouth calls for a while before this happened, just my own calls. And then what I tried to do was try to be able to make a call that the general hunter, the regular hunter, guy who wants to go out there and kill turkeys, can blow, can make it easy to use. And, after a Folgers can of calls that weren't very good, I finally come up with the Exterminator. And it's a 2-reed call. It's easy to blow. It's got good rasp. I've got people from Mississippi that use it. I got people all over the United States that use it. If they've never used it, and they like a raspy, good, easy call, once they try it, they usually like it.
And the difference between the exterminator and the exterminator combo is just the cut is different?
Yeah, the exterminator is a V cut. It's a modified V. In other words, the little wings on the sides, I just clip the tops and I make another little cut. Otherwise, it's just a regular split V. On the combo cut, a combo is one side of the cut, one side of the wing cut out. So you'd have your V in the middle, and then one of the sides is cut out. You can have a reverse combo or a regular combo cut. I like the reverse combo. The reverse combo, I blow more air, or my air comes out of my mouth to the left of my center easier than making it go to the right. So a reverse combo for me is the best way to get the high pitch from that second reed. That's where you get your high pitch. And then you can just, roll into the raspy yelp part. So.
Sure. And it is the best tip for people that don't know exactly where their center is, if they ordered a combo and ordered a regular and just decide which one that they blow better, and then they would probably know how they blow it?
Yep, that's the best way. If you're blowing straight out the center, you can use a ghost cut. That's where you get the ghost cut's got the center cut out. So you get your high pitch right out of the center, right off the bat. And then, you could do a combo or a reverse combo and tell which, if letting the air come out the left or letting the air come out the right. You can also look at yourself in the mirror and blow any kind of call, and you can see where the air is coming out from your tongue, between the tongue and the latex. You can see where the air is coming out, so you can tell which side you need, which one is going to work best for you.
And on two reed calls, sometimes I find that upper latex, the little flap, sometimes wants to peel back. What tip can you give if that little flap wants to, I don't even know what you'd call it, but it likes to peel back and kind of hang up? What do you find with that? Do you trim it just a little bit, or? Well,
you can trim it. If you look at the call, the more that little point sticks out past the second reed, the more rasp you're going to have in the call. So the more that sticks out, though, the more chance you'll have to flip your reed and it flips back and gets stuck. And then you're calling on a predator call pretty much, or an elk call, I should say. So if it's sticking out too far, you can trim a little bit. I don't like to trim mine. I just blow my air out to the left side, and I just focus on that. That's the best way for me to do it. Gotcha.
And then you also make trumpet calls and box calls and slate and glass and the whole. You make all kinds of turkey calls. Tell me about that.
I make just about everything that you can make a turkey sound with. I make pot calls, glass, slate, aluminum, ceramic. I also make box calls, the cost style box call, 20 checkers on the side. It's a one-piece box. It's not a glue up. And then I make trumpets. I make tube calls, and it's just all diverse type of turkey gear that you can carry around in your vest.
Right on. What's your schedule this spring coming up? What hunts do you have lined up, and when's your first hunt?
I'm flying to Jackson, Mississippi on March 21st. I'll be hunting with a friend of mine, Robin Risher, in Mississippi. We're actually going to go on a river and hunt a river. I've never done that in a boat, so that'll be a first. And then I'll come back for our opener. I get back on the 27th, and then our season opens the 28th. So I'll be here for our opener in California. And then I'm thinking about going to Montana like the first week of May. So I've never been to Montana, so that'll be a first.
Awesome. And in California, you can shoot, is it 3 birds?
3 bearded turkeys in the spring, yes.
Yeah, and it's a pretty liberal season, doesn't it go for like all the way to May something?
Yes, it's the last Saturday of March to the first Sunday in May. every year.
Gotcha. And how many states have you killed turkeys in, or have you ever counted?
19 states and Mexico.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Out of all those turkey hunts, do you have any one hunt that just stood out above the others as being your favorite hunt?
Probably my first time in Alabama. And, anytime you're hunting the South, it's just a completely different world, completely different terrain, woods. Everything is different than what I was used to. Plus, they have barred owls, and the barred owls get going in the morning, and the turkeys like to gobble to them. So that's a fun situation. But my first hunt in Alabama, they dropped me off. First, I'd never been there before. They pulled up to this little dirt road and they said, "Joe, just walk down the dirt road at about 200 or 300 yards until it makes a bend, and then stand right there in the bend until daylight. You should be able to hear a turkey, and then go ahead and hunt." And so I did. I was standing there at the bend in the road, and some owls started going at each other, and this turkey gobble sound. I thought he was going to eat me. That's what it sounded like anyway. But that was probably my funnest hunt.
Did you get him?
No, I didn't. That turkey actually ran us crazy for 3 days. That turkey stayed in the tree until almost 10 o'clock every day and strutted on the limb. I couldn't figure it out. I could hear him spitting and drumming. I was set up. I knew I was close. I could hear him clear as day, but I just never looked up. I never looked up in the tree. He was in the tree the whole time.
Oh, man.
And so we ended up, the third day that we hunted him, we ended up figuring out that he wasn't on the ground this whole time. And I actually got some binoculars, and I spotted him about 100 yards away. I seen him strutting up and down on the limb, up until about 9:15, 9:30. And then he flew 500 yards all the way across the road in the completely other direction. So.
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. That is, were you there for the senior finals this year with the new, the way they did it with the judges and such? I know you judged a lot of the contests, some of the different competitions, but were you there for the finals?
Yes, I was there for the finals. I watched the finals.
In your mind, who do you think did the best?
Man, when you get with those guys, all those guys sound so good. They all sound great. I thought Scott Ellis sounded awesome. He won the head-to-head. But it's really a coin flip. You're talking a point or a half a point between 3 or 4 guys. It's just crazy. Any of those guys is well deserved to win. So
I'm the same way. I mean, sitting there and listening to them, and thinking, goodness, they all sound just like a turkey up on the stage. And how do you judge one over the other? I do think it's interesting that it seems like every year, the top 6 or 7 are the same guys. I think that just goes to show, how good those guys are. I mean, everybody in the finals, the top 10 was unbelievable to me.
Yep. And there's some good younger callers that are coming up as well. But man, you get those top 5 or 6 guys, and like I said, it's a coin flip between those guys. They're all great.
Yeah. How did you like the new format with the judges being able to see who it is, and how do you like that?
I was really, really skeptical going into it. I didn't like the whole situation that the judges were knowing who was calling and all that. But I have to say that I really enjoyed the whole situation, the whole scenario. I still don't like the fact that the judges can see the callers. And I think with just a couple twists and turns, I think they can make it to where they, it would work without them seeing it. And then also I didn't like the fact that the callers who were, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, whatever, in the back were actually getting the feedback that the judges were given to the first, 2 or 3 or 4 callers. So it was kind of helping that situation out. But I think with a little bit of, just put them in a back room where they can't hear the actual conversations between the judges and the callers, will take care of that. And then, everything else. I thought the place was packed. I think there was a great crowd. It was just all around. I think it was a good situation.
There was definitely a lot of energy in the room. And, one thing I thought is they could potentially put the judges right where they were, but maybe put a screen up or a curtain where they couldn't actually see, they could still critique the caller, but maybe they wouldn't call them by name. And, they could still give feedback and critique, but they would say caller number one, whatever their critique is.
Right.
I thought Waddell did an incredible job as the MC, and overall I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, Waddell's great. They should have him do that every time. He really interacts with the judges and the callers too. And I thought get the judges closer to the stage and give them a swivel chair. Have them turn around and face the other way, and once it's judged, they can turn around and give their critique to the caller.
Oh yeah, that's actually a great idea, because then at that point they could go, hi Scott.
Right, right,
that
exactly.
was Scott Ellis. Okay,
but they wouldn't know it was Scott Ellis when they were actually writing their score down. So.
Yeah, I mean that's a very interesting. I kind of like that. Joe, how can people get a hold of you? Give me your website address, and I know you're on Facebook, I think just under Joe Slaton, Slaton. Give me your website address for Motherlode Turkey Calls.
My website for Motherlode Turkey Calls is motherlodeturkeycalls.com, MOTHERLODE turkeycalls.com.
Joe, what I'd like to do is give our listeners a little bit of a demonstration on some of the different calls you have. I think one of the first things is give me some of the gobbling that won you the Grand Nationals this year.
Okay.
Let's hear some of your gobbling.
I'm gobbling on a mouth call that I make. It's a triple reed. It's got special little
Is
cut.
that the call you used in the contest?
This one that I'm actually going to call on is not the one that I use, but it's just like it. I mean, I've made 5 or 6 of them that way, but
awesome.
This is the one I actually put inside my call case that I carry with me when I'm hunting. So if I need to make a gobble or whatever, I can use it. So. And
then do you have a tube of some kind, or what are you using on the external?
Yeah, I don't right now, but I have it in my vest. It's called an amplifier. I make it. It just gives it a little more volume. It makes it a little bit louder.
Gotcha.
A couple of years ago when I was hunting in Missouri, there was 5 gobblers out in this field with about 4 or 5 hens, and they were all strutting around her. And they would gobble every time I'd call, but they wouldn't come. They wouldn't do anything. So I thought, shoot, I'll try something different. I put my gobbling mouth call in, and I used my little amplifier, and I gobbled at them. And they gobbled back, but they didn't seem like they were going to move or anything. So I sat back down against a tree, and I was in like a little creek bed. And, I mean, it wasn't 30 seconds. I heard, and I kind of peeked up over the little creek bed where I could see, and there was 2 big gobblers there. I ended up killing the strutter, and he had 1 3/4 spurs. So
goodness,
that's why I keep a gobble call with me all the times. So
yeah. So why don't you give us some gobbling here? Let's see what you got.
All right. That's my gobble call.
That's incredible. And you're just doing that by shaking your lips or something?
I'm going ticka, ticka, ticka really fast.
Wow.
I'll stick it in there and I'll show you. I'm going to put the mouth call in just like you would put all the mouth calls in. I'm going to go ticka, ticka. So.
Gotcha. That's incredible. That sounds just like a turkey. So you won't hesitate if turkey's hung up or something, you'll gobble at them, and a lot of times it works.
Well, I mean, each situation is different, and you got to be really careful safety-wise of gobbling. I've gobbled people up before, so I want to make sure I can see real well. I know, where people are, and I'm just really careful about doing it because it's just safety hazard. People are looking for turkeys that are gobbling, so. But yeah, it's a good weapon to have. If I get a big gobbler that's got a bunch of hens and I get in close enough where I can challenge him, I'll gobble at him, and a lot of times he'll come in and want to fight.
That's awesome. What do you have next for us? You got a diaphragm there, one of your exterminators or combos or something?
Yeah, this is exterminator combo right here. I'll yelp on it for you. There you go.
That sounds awesome, Joe. That's awesome. What else you got? A box?
I got a box call. This is a Spanish cedar and yellow heart. There you go.
Man, that sounds really good. That sounds really good. Give me a demonstration, Joe, if you're just out, that box call's in your vest, and let's say you're just out on a ridge top and you're just trying to strike a bird. What would you actually do? In what sequence would you use to strike a bird that's, you're just prospecting. You have no idea what's around.
Well, we did this a lot. This was Marvin's thing. I mean, he loved box calls. I love box calls, but he always had a box call with him, and through that, I actually carry a box call with me every time I go out. And it was mostly for that reason, because a lot of times, whether it's wind or for whatever reason the turkeys aren't gobbling that good that day, and we're just pretty much prospecting. We're out on a ridge just walking along, and we'll go 100, 150 yards, and then stop and call a little bit. And most of the time, the box call will get a reaction when a lot of times the mouth call or even a pot call or some of the other stuff won't get a reaction out of a turkey. And then once we get a reaction, now we can figure out the hunt and what to do. But this is how I'd normally do it with box call. If I'm out on a ridge just doing a little prospecting. That's how I do it.
That's awesome. Do you find out that they normally will gobble, kind of when you start getting excited there and cutting, or it just depends on their mood?
It depends on their mood. A lot of times with the box call, the first time you yawk, yawk, yawk with it, they just hammer back. And then if that doesn't get them, usually the excited pop, 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 yelp, 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 yelp. That's usually when they'll do it if they're going to gobble. But if you notice, I started soft because, after walking 150, 200 yards in between calling, a lot of times the turkeys can't hear you depending on the wind, the lay of the land, different little ridges and stuff that they're behind, and it's hard to hear. And if you move into their section where they can actually hear you, you always want to start off slow, because they could be right on top of you. You never know. So I usually try to start off slow and then get a little more excited as you go along with the calling.
Sure, yeah. No, that sounded awesome. That's great advice. Well, Motherlode Turkey Calls, Joe Slaton. Go check out his website, and I love your calls, Joe. And I need to get some more exterminators, so I'm going to be giving you a ring here, and just appreciate having you on the show, and wish you the best this season, my man.
Well, good talking to you again, Jay, and we need to hit the woods again one of these days. And
Sounds
good luck
great.
this spring.
All right, buddy. Take care, and God bless.
All right.
I want to thank you for listening to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast.
We had a lot of fun with Mr. Joe Slaton this week, and I want to encourage you to go on iTunes if you like what you hear and give us 5-star ratings and give us your comments. If you have any topics that you'd like to hear, any questions you'd like answered on the air, go to jscottoutdoors@gmail.com and send me an email. And until next week, God bless you guys, and thanks for listening.